look, I'd probably go on again to Graham by saying it coming from a tip man. It'd be great if this match was on in Portlaoise. And the reason why I say that is that just say Tip wouldn't mind going to Portlaoise. Laois would like it just to be on in Portlaoise. But as regards for the people of Laois, the people of Hurling, to get a chance to see their heroes play Tip in an All-Ireland quarter-final, what that would do for the game would be unbelievable.
Laois, 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 everybody, Laois, 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 Laois. Welcome to Corbett and McGrath's Big Build-Up, brought to you by Centra. I'm Colin Doherty, this is Mr. Corbett, and this, of course, is Mr. McGrath. Lads, let's be honest, Laois have thrown a massive spanner in the works. Now, Laura, I'm not saying as a Tipperary man that you were overlooking them, but when we had our meeting last week, all I heard was Dublin this and Dublin that.
Well, I wasn't saying it, but Paddy Power was saying it, and so was the Dublin match tracker saying it. So, yeah, I think that Dublin were thinking about playing Tip maybe in the All-Ireland quarter-final. I think that maybe they didn't give maybe Laois the respect maybe that they deserved, and it's a very, very hard thing to do to keep guys in the dressing room thinking about this game and stop thinking about the next game. I think that's what happened.
Yeah, well, look, they're in the quarterfinals now. It is quarterfinal time, so we're going to talk about it. For the first time in 9 years, the quarters are in Croke Park. So it's a double header on Sunday, Kilkenny v Cork at 2 p.m. and at 4 p.m. the Munster runners-ups, Tipperary against Laois. Before we actually look ahead of these games, it would be wrong to not look back at what happened on Sunday. And Sports Joe's Niall McIntyre was at O'Muir Park, and he got some clips after the game. So, Derek, they look to be a team that's enjoying themselves. How hard is it to take on a team that is just enjoying their hurling?
Yeah, look, and I think winning obviously breeds enjoyment, but I think it's very obvious, even looking at the McDonagh Cup final, the aftermath of it, in terms of the culture of enjoyment that's there. You know, the lads were having they were out on the Sunday night. You know, they had a few pints on the Sunday night. They had a day out on the Monday. I think there was a story that they were in the Hawaiian shorts on Monday, if you like. They had a right crack, if you like, on the Monday, and then they were back in on the Tuesday and the Wednesday, and then even pictures of them last Sunday, you know, enjoying the moment. You know, I remember when we'd beaten Kilkenny for the first time in the championship in 58 years in 2017, we were playing 2 weeks later. We still went out and enjoyed the night as it was in front of us, if you like. And I think that's what Eddie has done. I think that's what the whole team and the whole, in terms of the whole environment seems to be based on completely enjoying it. Now, obviously, when you're winning, it makes anything more enjoyable. But I think it's very hard to kind of underestimate it, you know, in terms of what a culture of going in there on Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday, absolutely enjoying the whole friendships, everything that's part and parcel of being part of a winning environment and an enjoyable environment.
Is that something as a player, Laura, that you found was beneficial? Like, were you thinking, geez, we've got a game in 6 days' time, or was it just more important to have the group together, having a bit of celebration?
See, I suppose there's two different ways of looking at it. Laois ran a high after winning the McDonagh Cup, and they were coming in then to the next game. I won't say maybe in bonus territory, but if you're a team that's after winning an All-Ireland last year and you're coming in and you're kind of defending it, or just say you're after winning an All-Ireland the year before and you had a bad year, so there's two different ways of looking at it. Eddie knew that they were after doing something unbelievable, then they were after just say beating Dublin, which is unbelievable again. So there's a way of harnessing that. And I was just listening to Eddie on the radio the other night, and he went to the players and said, lads, we're going to enjoy Sunday, but as I'm putting it over to you as regards Monday. So the players then have a choice. Do we want more of the same, or will we just go out on the Sunday and go on the Monday and just forget about it? So when you hand responsibility back over to the players, and they're within the group and say, right, lads, yeah, we'll enjoy a few beers here tonight. Yeah, so we'll meet tomorrow, we'll have a few. But that's it, because the responsibility is back over onto the players. And I think you get people to think different. When you give a panel, when you give players and you give leaders responsibility, they'll figure out the answers themselves. But I think when you put a total ban on things, you'll get 3 or 4 people to rebel against that, and they'll bring another 3 or 4 with them, and now you have nothing. So I think Eddie's after playing it very, very clever.
Yeah. On the Monday, Derek, though, when you're a manager, would you be worrying a bit when you start seeing the Hawaiian shirts coming out? Would you like, I wish they just had stayed in the Sunday?
I think, as Lara said, it's balance, it's balance. I think there's an element, even on the Monday, I won't say they're guilt-laden, but they're almost saying on the Monday, look, we'll take it handy, we won't do the dog on it,
Yeah.
And I think they have two choices. They can lean on the McDonagh Cup victory, or they can attack it. And I think, with no disrespect to Dublin, I think the opposition also helped in terms of the non-traditional element of the opposition that they faced, the home venue in terms of a Moore Park being available, and I'd say there was a smell of a chance, as opposed to, if they were meeting a traditional powerhouse, a Cork or a Tip or a Kilkenny, where they tend to put the hammer down on not a minnow, but they tend to kind of go for it against a minnow, if you like. And I think there was a tendency to say, right, Dublin are sitting ducks here. They've been out of action for 3 weeks. They're coming off the absolute high of beating Galway in Paranoia Park. Everyone is building them up to be unbeatable, whatever they were, 1-8 in the bookies, if you like, or 1-10 in the bookies. So I think there's an element of that, and there's a cuteness from Brennan as well in terms of the whole approach. The media perception is we've only a week to prepare. The media perception is we're up against it here, and underneath the surface then you have this bubble. And also if you gauge it in terms of barometer of league form, I think Eddie admitted Laois could easily have beaten Dublin in the league this year. Not that the league is always a barometer, but there's never a huge gap between what I'd perceive as ourselves, even Waterford, Dublin, Wexford and the Laois. The Tipperary, Kilkennys and Cork seem to be able to put the hammer down on these teams a bit easier than us.
Why is that? Like, why are the traditional powerhouses better at doing it? If you think if Galway had taken on Laois, you'd assume that they would have put the hammer down. But
yeah, and even if you look back to last year, Limerick played Carlow. I think they beat them by 27 or 28 points, whereas Wexford struggled for a huge amount of time against Westmeath in the equivalent preliminaries last year. Even ourselves, the second round of the league in 2015, the year we won the league, I remember going to Dungarvan absolutely petrified, playing Cheddars, Laois. We're playing them, and I was almost kind of. There was a feeling in Waterford that if we'd have lost it, I would have had to step away. That's the type of pressure in an environment where maybe perhaps people's expectations are not in line with more pragmatic or realistic viewpoints, if you like. And I think it's a lot of it is to do with the tradition. A lot of it's to do with the absolute. But I think you have to be, when you're playing Laois or you're playing Westmeath or Carlow, you have to be completely paranoid nearly in your approach if you're coming from a Waterford or a Dublin or a Wexford. I'm not saying Matty wasn't, because I actually thought Matty Kenny dealt very well with it. Showed real grace under pressure after the game, if you like, in terms of having to front up and face, the ramifications or the implications of the Laois rightly being the story,
Yeah, well, Matty Kenny was talking afterwards and he said that was an unacceptable performance from our group, and we know that. The problem is it's too beeping late now, so he wasn't happy. How damaging is that to a team like Dublin?
Yeah, Dublin are going to look at themselves and say, where do we go from here? When you look at results like that, so I know Matty is saying that they weren't thinking of Tip, and Tip wasn't mentioned in the dressing room, but was mentioned everywhere else. So that does seep into players. The Dublin footballers, the Kilkenny hurlers, seem to be the only two that when Kilkenny were at the powerhouse, and just say where Dublin is now, seem to be the only two that, no matter what is being said on the outside, doesn't seep into the players. And the reason why it doesn't seep into the players is that you're worried about the fella sitting beside you in the dressing room. That if you take your foot off the gas, if you're thinking about the next game, your spot has gone today. And I think that the Dublin hurlers took their foot off the gas. I think they were thinking of the next game. They were thinking of Tip, thinking about how they were going to stop Noel McGrath or Shane McCallan or whatever else was going on. And they weren't thinking about the game. So was there a small bit of softness? It looks like that there was. That tells me that maybe players then weren't chopping at the bit inside and training, maybe fellas that were thinking of the next game. And if you're allowed to think like that, it just creates a softness. And you can't change it in the middle of a game. Because when the whole game starts going away from you, everyone starts singing at the same time. This is not how we planned it. This is not what we spoke about. This is not.
Yeah.
But there are possibilities, but Dublin didn't think of them.
Yeah, I think there's two things there. First of all, is if you go back to 2010, Dublin were beaten by Antrim in Croke Park, Anthony Daly's first or second year, and they rebuilt after that. There are other signs that can act, as a kind of a barometer for where teams have developed afterwards. And the second thing is, if you really analyse the performance, it really is the story of Laois in terms they dominated the whole game. you know, in terms of how they set up, in terms of the way they went about their business, and in terms of the fluency of their hurling and the quality of their play. You know, they bullied Dublin from the very start of the game to the end of the game. There was a feeling of 55 minutes. I think Dublin equalised at 55 minutes. There was a feeling that Dublin would just go on and dominate from there. But again, Laois just rejigged, got on top again, and they were full value for it. You know, they were full value. There are a lot of quality players, particularly in the forward line.
Yeah, well, it's Laois v Tip now this weekend, and we actually think, looking at the performance in the Munster final, that maybe Limerick have shown Laois maybe a blueprint of how to get at the Tipperary defence. We're going to look at the Kyle Hayes goal, so we'll pull up the video now, Laura, and you can talk us through that.
So if you look at this there, Kyle Hayes actually gets the block here, and he's actually tracking back. Now, he's no need or no reason to run, because James Berry's supposed to have this ball. But he actually runs on the condition maybe someone might get a flick and gets in for goal. So where that originated from, it started from a block. But it just goes to show how focused Limerick are. That he got the block in, he saw James Berry getting the ball, he saw James Berry moving forward, but he kept running the opposite direction for something might happen. The chances of getting a flick on that is down around 5 to 10%.
Yeah.
But he took that 5%. So it's 95% again, and 5% he's going to get, but he took that chance. That, in a nutshell, shows me what Limerick are actually made of, to create chances like that when no one else could actually see it.
That's it's like a monster mentality as well, isn't it? Like, just to make their own, knowing the chances are nothing will happen, but you make it anyway.
He made it anyway, and that just goes to prove he got the block, made the run. Like, that's really what Limerick are all about this year.
Yeah. Well, Derek, like, can any other team do that though against Tipperary?
It'll be hard, because I think there's no point in avoiding the whole, you know, not the parallel, but the difference. I think Laois are playing a much higher quality opposition this weekend, in my opinion. I think, you know, the tip test, to an extent, the bonus territory does apply this weekend. Yeah. Whereas it didn't apply, we'll say, in my opinion, in the mindset of the Laois players. They said, we have a real chance here against Dublin. Now, I'm not trying to get myself in the mind of Eddie Brennan. I wouldn't try and I wouldn't be able to do that. I wouldn't have the capacity to be able to do that. But the point I'm making is that I really do feel, no matter what the result on Sunday, that the Laois season can be seen as an absolute, you know, unbelievable success. So I think it's the quality of the opposition. In terms of bringing the Limerick template to trouble Tipperary, again, structurally, there's a very good example there in that Peter Casey is in there on his own. You'd expect Ross King and Willie Dunphy to possibly be in there on their own if John Lennon goes back as a sweeper or a 7 defender. So you'd hope that a situation would arise whereby if Pádraig Maher is back there sitting on the edge of the D, that Willie Dunphy or Ross King are able to get to him, dispossess him, and that you have the half forwards, Mark Kavanagh, etc., coming in on the break. That's their only hope, and they will have to execute every chance they get against Tipperary, similarly to what Kyle Hayes do. Every chance they get, there's no room for error on Sunday next.
Yeah, Peter Casey described Limerick as their forwards as tacklers first, scorers second, and that's scary considering they scored 1-5 from play. Can Laois sort of adopt that model, like even the work rate model at the top, or can they sustain that for 70 minutes?
I think they can in terms of work rate. Have they the same quality as Limerick in terms of the forward line? I'd say no. And that's without being in any way disingenuous or disrespectful to Laois and what they've done. You know, a forward line of Gearóid Hegarty, Kyle Hayes, Tom Morrissey, Peter Casey, Graham Mulcahy, Aaron Gillan, in my opinion, is one of the top quality forward lines in the championship, and Laois are not quite at that. Of course, they're evolving and they're trying to get to that, and they've made a massive stride towards getting to that. But the work ethic for me is non-negotiable, and I think that will be part of their overall mantra. And I think their basic maxim over the weekend will be 78 minutes of absolute relentless work ethic, and see where it takes us. But it's very much bonus territory, as if I want to repeat myself.
Just on that, there was a guy with Thurles Sarsfields last year, was Dave Moriarty. He's actually the trainer with Eddie Brennan. Now, I came across him about 15 years ago, and he was involved with Limerick. But he was with Sarsfields just say last year, and he's big into the possession game, exactly where Limerick play. So, for instance, he's big into having games 3-on-3 and 4-on-4 in close proximity of each other. Laois are not going to get the ball and rain it down on top of Pádraig Maher on Sunday. They're not going to hit the ball away, and you can see that the way that their Laois have been playing already this year. They're getting the ball, they're running through the lines, they're giving the hand pass, they're giving the short stick work. That's coming from Dave. Dave also knows how Pádraig Maher, Ronan Maher plays from just say Sarsfields last year, so they're going to know their ins and outs of just say how Tip are going to set up. So I think Laois are going to bring the Limerick model of how Limerick dealt with just say the Maher half back line and that. So I would be very wary of just say how Laois are going to come to the table.
Yeah, there's an interesting sort of debate springing from this game now. So it's basically revolving around staying sharp or getting sharp. And when you think that this is Laois's third game in 3 weeks, it's going to be, would that be a problem for a player, like playing 3 games back to back, or would you rather that?
Just as a player, I won't say, and I don't like using the word that they're in bonus territory because it's very unfair. They're well entitled where they are, but they're on a high. And when you get a bunch of players together, when they're on a high and they're after doing things maybe that at the beginning of the year they didn't think that they could do, keep that going. Don't give them a break. The last thing they want is 3 weeks now to think, or 2 weeks to think about what went on, and now you start dwelling on it. And the more people that you meet in around the Laois community putting you on a pedestal on a high, you want these games coming quick and fast. And I think no better person than Eddie to keep the players grounded, because he's done it all from his experience. So when he says something, guys are going to listen, which they have done all year. But he's going to tell them, lads, we have a crack at Tip here now. And he will have them in the belief that they could overturn Tip. And why not? Like, why not? They're after doing it just to Dublin already, so there should be no reason.
Yeah, well, Derek, I want to sort of see how exactly will Laois set up against Tip. So if you don't mind, we'll bring the tactics board out here and you can show us exactly how that's going to be done.
Okay, the interesting thing from Laois' perspective is, will they follow the mantra that they followed last weekend against Dublin, which saw initially John Lennon go to full forward, we'd say. He went at the very start of the game. Chad Dwyer went to middle of the field wearing 14, before John Lennon just came back as an out-and-out sweeper. Mark Kavanagh then comes very deep from centre forward. There are 2 wing forwards here. Aaron Dunphy comes deep here, and Ross King and Willie Dunphy kind of playing close here. Now what they did last week was they allowed Shane Barrett to be free. So it'll be interesting to see, will they leave Cathal Barrett, James Barry or Sean O'Brien, or if it's Alan Flynn, who will they say is the most or the least likely to do them damage in terms of if they're receiving a puck out from Brian Hogan. So that's essentially, not alone do they do that, but they allow Willie Dunphy to operate out in the middle of the field as well. So you have a crowded middle third, which allows, as I said, John Lennon to sweep up there, Ryan Mullaney to be tight as a centre forward, and they're very fluid in the movements of as well. You'll see Willie Dunphy comes back in here, but that's essentially how they set up the last day, which is, there's 2 things in it. There's the actual tactical fluidity. You know, Eddie Brennan during my term in office was almost abhorred at the sweeper system, and I'm glad to see that he's wearing a different hat now in terms of when he's involved in the pragmatic element of management, what it can do and what it can bring to the table, and it can be seen as an attacking force. I think they got 123 last weekend, so what it can bring, they'll hope to do that. But I think what Eddie will need to have this weekend, he'll need also to have a plan B, you know, because just going on our own experience of playing Tipperary in 2016, if you give a ball to Cathal Barrett here, he goes 20 yards, it's aerial bombardment, John McGrath wins one in the air, Bubbles wins one in the air, and it's a goal. The plan can not going to fall apart, but you can be hurt by, I think Enda McAvoy wrote in the Examiner after our game, death by aerial bombardment. You know, where they just get a couple of goals on you, they get a run on you, you're handing over possession. So I think Eddie will be ready to change it up with Chad Dwyer every now and again coming into full forward, and John Lennon coming back to the middle of the field, and then the centre back just sitting as Declan Hannon does, if you like. So there'll be a plan A and a plan B, depending on his approach. And he might throw a spanner in the works with Tip expecting a 7th defender this weekend. He might go conventional enough, if you like, with more of a packed middle third, than having just an out-and-out sweeper, if you like, you know. Yeah. It'll be interesting.
Well, they've really been sort of using the assets that they have to the full value of them all, and I think to that end it's sort of interesting to note. I'm going to ask you a question, Lar. Do you know the only Laois man to win an All-Star, a hurling All-Star?
1985, Pat Critchley.
Good man.
Yeah.
Pat Critchley.
So, and like, Laois now are in a different situation now, so this is a new crop of players that are coming. That's 1985, so you're 34 or 5 years ago. So now there's this new crop that are coming. So the GEA and us hurling counties, we need Laois. We need teams that are going to step up and be competitive. So Laois now are on the crest of a wave, so it's help they need now. So no matter what happens on Sunday, it's help now that Laois want, because it's good for the whole lot. And I suppose it's after being probably one of the biggest shocks that Laois are after being just coming into an All-Ireland quarter-final. So now, look, I'd probably go on again to Graham by saying it coming from a tip man. It'd be great if this match was on in Port Laois. And the reason why I say that is that just say Tip wouldn't mind going to Port Laois would like it just to be on in Port but as regards for the people of Laois, the people of Hurling, to get a chance to see their heroes play Tip in an All-Ireland quarter-final, what that would do for the game would be unbelievable. So like Croke Park gets the Spice Girls, it gets Westlife, it gets the Super 8s, like it gets, like for instance the Super 11s go to America, the All-Stars go to Singapore, but these guys are the roots of the GAA. This is where the hurling is start. This is where you're going to sow the seed for years to come in Laois as regards for these hurlers to come through. The GAA are also going about sowing the seed, developing officers, all that. In 170 minutes, you do 10 years work in 170 minutes. Capturing the imagination of the young guys that are coming, the supporters, the guys in charge of the ground, opening up the gates that morning for an All-Ireland quarter-final. The Tip lads are walking through, you have Liam Sheedy walking through, you have Eddie Brennan walking through. The likes that you can't buy that. So it would have been great if there was a vision as regards Sunday came and yet the result, and now here's the fixture. It's on in Port Laois. Just captured imagination.
Yeah, it's hard to disagree with that. Now that's inspirational, really, because goosebumps. Because I think Cheddar made a remark that if there was 20 families, even if we looked at the scenes at the start of the programme, 20 families that were out on the pitch after the game, if 20 of those were involved in some capacity in Laois going forward, that'd be just a huge fill-up for the whole county. Who
do we have as matchups, the key battle for this game now on Sunday?
So the key battle for this weekend is Matthew Whelan and Shamie Callan. And I think this is going to be a huge battle for Matthew and Shamie, and it's all going to come down to the supply of ball that are coming in from the likes of Noel and the likes of Porrick, maybe where the two boys were man-marked out the field the last day. But that's going to be a huge battle. I'm not going to say that's where it's going to be won and lost, but it's going to be a major, major part of the game on Sunday.
Yeah. Do you see Matthew getting on top of Shamie? Obviously, it's going to be a tough battle for him.
Tough. I'd say look, it'll depend on their setup. If they have the help of John Lennon there, obviously he'll be close enough then to Matthew Whelan and Shamie might have to live off scraps. But Tip are very, very adept at moving their forwards around to the extent that the sweeper becomes redundant almost. And I think that will be their policy when they get to Croker. This is their first out in Croker. Their policy will be to move more than they've ever done this year. Not to forget what got them up to the Munster final in terms of that carousel, being able to move everywhere, the interchange between Bubbles, John McGrath, Shamie Callan, Jason Ford, Dan McCormick working back the field. So I say you'll see more movement than you've ever seen before. And look, it's for me, it's Tipperary's game to win convincingly, and that's being perfectly honest. But I don't think we can forget the Laois story and Eddie Brennan's influence even on the whole Laois story. And even from a young lad watching and thinking of getting into coaching or management, Eddie Brennan's first job in management saw him being defeated by Westmeath in Kilkenny as the under-21 manager. Now another manager walks away from that. First of all, he doesn't put his 8 or 9 All-Ireland medals in jeopardy by getting involved in management. He gets involved in under-21, coalface. He's beaten by Westmeath in Mullingar. He probably has to live with the implications of the reaction to that. He goes back the following year, wins the Leinster Championship. He goes to Laois when he could have easily kept his seat, if you like, in on the Sunday game or whatever. And I know he's still involved in the Sunday game and a brilliant addition to the Sunday game. The point I'm making is that the perseverance and the ability to be able to change his approach when he's in management as opposed to playing, it's a special skill. So I couldn't give enough praise for his whole approach,
Yeah, brilliant stuff, lads. So coming up, we are going to take a look at Kilkenny against Cork. So Kilkenny are taking on Cork in the Championship for the first time since 2013. That sounds really strange, but it's true. They met in the quarter-final then as well. And can you guess who came through it?
I can. It was the Rebels.
It's the Rebels.
Yeah,
Rebels
Henry Shefton was sent off the same day, I think.
Yeah.
Because the reason I remember is because Waterford brought Kilkenny to extra time in the round before Michael Ryan's last year in charge. I remember we thought we had Kilkenny for the first time since 59, if you like, and Kilkenny just came back during extra time. So remember, for all the wrong reasons.
I should never, ever, ever test Derek McGrath's mind like that. Like, you're always going to beat me on it. But you've tipped Cork as the only team who could challenge Limerick earlier in one of the episodes. Why is that?
Well, I think they're a dangerous team. I think their sextet of forwards are, you could argue that they're probably, with Tip, I'd imagine Limerick, they're as good, if not better, than any set of forwards, I think, in the Championship. And ironically, they may have even fallen upon their best set of forwards over the last couple of weeks in that, a few of them fought a half-forward line of Conor Lahan, Kingston, you have Horgan, you have Shamie Harnedy, you have I'm missing someone very obvious now, Alan Cadigan, and they're all scoring freely from play, and Darragh Fitzgibbon's relocation to centre forward as well. I think give us 6 forwards that have a perfect combination of pace and hurling. You may argue that the Aidan Welsh factor in terms of breaking up the play, in terms of what Daniel Carney gives you going back the field, is gone. But what you have, I think, is you have a fluency in terms of score. So for me, they can hurt you. The question marks always about Cork are based on their defensive, not alone their defensive shape, but their defensive capabilities in one-on-one situations.
Yeah, well, they swept Westmeath aside at the weekend like they weren't even there. Well, John Myler was just happy that they got to the 40 points. That's all he was happy about. But Laura, as a forward, I think they got 135 from play. How good is that for confidence of a forward?
Yeah, 135 from play is unbelievable. And as Derek said, like, you've Cadigan, Harnedy, Kingston and Horgan, all 5 from play, and Conor Lahan 4. And probably the 2 players there, Kingston and Conor Lahan, weren't starting all the games, a little bit kind of in and out of it, maybe suffering a little bit maybe of confidence. And I just look back at my own playing career. Even when you're at your highest, you're always looking for an edge. And I remember I'd be looking, I won't say a game like Westmeath, but I might go back to the club and I might say, when are you playing 15 and 15? Will you give me a chance? Will you put me in? I just need an extra edge. And it could be a week before an All-Ireland quarter-final or a week before a semi-final, and the management wouldn't know. And Tommy Maher would have been manager at the time, and I'd say, just give me a chance out around middle of the field. I just want to get onto ball. I want a bit of extra sharpness. And he said, Larry, you're taking a chance coming in here. Just say if you do get a knock, you do get injured. I said, there's a bigger chance if I don't have the edge. So I just think sometimes we can wrap ourselves up in a bit of cotton wool and we go out in Croke Park, and if you don't have the edge, there's no point being there. So you need the edge. If you were to ask me 2 weeks ago, I would have said that Kilkenny, they're a serious team and they're going to be they'll be in the shake-up come the end. Yeah. I just think that this game is going to play right into Cork's hand. I've always said it, the hurling starts when you get to Croke Park. Everything that happens in Leinster, Munster, it's nice. It's just nice, and it's nice to be where you are. But the hurling and the serious end starts when you go to Croke Park. And when you get into Croke Park, you have to have the confidence. Sometimes as players, we kind of question ourselves, do we or do we not? And you need an edge come this time of the year. You need to get it from somewhere. These Cork forwards are after getting the edge again, Westmeath, and I do think that they'll bring it to Croke Park. The only thing I'm a little bit fearful of, if it turns into a dogfight in Croke Park, Kilkenny know how to win the dogfight. But I think if it comes into just a scoring competition, Cork.
But could you genuinely take real confidence from beating a team or roasting a player who, I'm disrespecting Westmeath, but like you're way better than? Would you take confidence from that?
Everything goes back on your memory, and sometimes you forget how you do things, and sometimes you question yourself when it goes to Croke Park. It doesn't make a difference who you're marking and who you're playing. You need a memory, and you need a memory current, up-to-date one, to say, right, so I can do this. And then you bring them mental things to Croke Park with you. So it's about being under some bit of pressure. Doesn't make a difference where it is, but you put the ball between the posts. You put the ball between the posts. Them players went home on the bus, individually inside themselves. I'm happy now. Now the job is back on the management. Will they play me Sunday? They know, they can see I can do it. So everyone is coming home with a bit of confidence inside as an individual. And that's where it starts.
I'd say you'd be lining up against the weakest cornerback in training just to get a bit of confidence.
And yes, I used to look for that. I used to look for that. I used to say, Tommy, will you just give me a chance here? It's a chance I'm looking for. So yeah, and then I'd go home and I would be happy. Now with the cornerback, I'd be marking me happy. No, but there's only one ball of energy. Everyone has to rob out of it, take something out of it. We all can't be going around 100% full of confidence. You have to. I always kind of say it's about taking confidence off your opponent. You have to try and rob a bit more than what he's taking off you. Yeah. And if you go home with that bit of confidence, will you bring that then to Croke Park with you on Sunday?
Well, Derek, let's call a spade here. Kilkenny haven't had a good championship. Like if you look through it, they lost to Galway in Nolan Park. They've drawn and lost to Wexford. They scraped past Dublin, beat a poor Carlow side. They've now lost back-to-back Leinster finals for the first time since 1977. This is not going well for them.
No, and the more we say that, the more probability is they'll probably win on Sunday. You know, yeah. And look, that's the reality of it. And look, it's still for me. There's an element of not doubt. What never be doubted or questioned in Kilkenny is the work ethic, the honesty of approach, the whole, being written off and then producing against the odds, or the quality of their players, and particularly I'd say the quality of their forward players. Like TJ Reid is arguably the best hurler in the country. Walter Welsh has had a small dip in form. Jerry Aylward didn't materialise the way I thought he'd materialise this year. I saw him early in the league this year at centre forward. I thought he was going to be a big addition for the championship. I think Adrian Mullen has been a big addition. For me, it's just the lack of certainty around the back line, albeit Hugh Lawler settled very well at full back and Pádraig Welch is at centre back. But for me, when they've come against teams, particularly teams that have been system-based, Wexford, Limerick, we'll say last year in the quarter-final, even though that was a game for right down to the death. I even watched that game back last night, though, that Gillane could have had a couple of goals and Limerick could have been out of sight midway through the second half in that game. So when they come against a team perhaps that are dragging them out the field, I've attended that old-fashioned approach where Kilkenny had a collective six all in tight together, where you had, and I know we're comparing players, where you had Michael Cavan and Noel Hickey, you know, Jackie Tyrrell, and you had Tommy Welch and JJ Lane. I know they're not there, but what you normally would see is that Kilkenny backline being completely as a compact six, handing over responsibility once a wing forward went down the pitch, you know, to their wing forwards who would be working like dogs all over the pitch. And I don't see that as much in terms of the structure that they have in terms of how they're playing. And for me, that's the biggest element of doubt I'd have around Kilkenny, whether Cork or not can drag them all over the pitch. Because if they do, Cork have the pace to hurt any team. If they're dragged all over the pitch, they can hurt you.
Yeah, and well, the problem with Kilkenny is that they still can hurt you from anywhere on the pitch. And Laura, you have picked out a nice TJ Reid point that we're going to have a look at now. If you want to analyse it for us.
So yeah, you see TJ just running off the shoulder here, and like, you know, it's a great pass, but he runs through the defence, and it's a great score. But not only that, you have TJ had to think about something for the 2 weeks up to this game that Wexford kind of outfoxed him, I suppose, the last, I won't say him, but maybe the Kilkenny forwards outfoxed him the last day. This time round, TJ had 2 weeks to think about it. I think he got it right. And I think Matthew O'Hanlon, he got two maybe possessions maybe in the first few minutes of the game and was a little bit jittery on the ball. And sometimes when you're given a job as an individual, you're saying to stop another player. So that's fully focused on that. But now when you're given control of the situation and the ball, sometimes you kind of think, well, this wasn't my job today. My job was to stop someone else. So sometimes you kind of get mixed communications and you get a little nervous. TJ had 2 weeks to learn from the last round of the Leinster finally. So I think Wexford came with the same game plan. TJ came with a different game plan, got 4 points from play, was more consistently involved in the game, thought that he found a lot of room for himself in the game.
Yeah, well, actually, what I like most about this clip, Derek, is what you spotted for us afterwards. So we're going to run it on a little bit, and you found something interesting or someone interesting behind the goals.
Yeah, and look, I suppose if you circle there, you'll see there's a guy putting his hand up to the ear. He's obviously, and I was watching. I was actually at the game. I was in the Davin stand, and I was watching it during the first half. There was a guy behind the goal, obviously interacting with Mark Fanning for the whole game. Obviously calling the puck outs, where they're winning the puck outs, obviously wired up maybe to either to Saoirse Bulfin or to JJ Doyle or Keith Rossiter above, and obviously wired to Davy as well. And the instruction, I don't think it was a coincidence. We say Wexford's early policy in the puck out situation was to go along down the middle of the pitch. You know, so I'd say this guy was here maybe in a mentoring capacity to Mark Fanning as much as anything else, where a guy builds a relationship with a guy and he needs to be near him. I know people might think it's taking it to a new level and all that kind of stuff. The other element of it is, I actually, during the league game between Wexford and Kilkenny, I saw him during that game. It was a kind of a snowy day, and I saw him during that game, and I said to myself, Jesus, I look out for him now. So I was almost kind of paranoid looking for him, binoculars in tow, we'd say, from the Davin stand, and I saw him, and then I saw him making his way to the hill, negotiating his way past right to where he was there, and he's completely wired up. So listen, it's interesting in that, you know, off camera, Lara might want to take up the point about you felt, Lara, that there's a situation where you can see more.
Yeah, like we'd always be very quick to give out to goalies, let it be intercounty, let it be club, and goalie would always tell you, Lara, you come down beside me and you have a look what I can see.
Yeah.
So then you go down and you say to them after 20 minutes, oh now, yeah. So they're looking in a straight line down along the field and they can't see the gaps between the half forward, the midfielder. It looks like that they're on top of each other. But when you're looking at a side angle of the field, now you can see 20 yards. Now you can see the gaps. And as Derek is saying, if this guy is wired up to somebody in the stand that's looking at a side angle of the field to find out just where the gaps are, who's not making the runs, then you have an advantage. And will it come to another level that if there's a goalie getting just 30 puck outs per game on average, will it come that the goalie is actually wired up himself? Will it actually come to that there's an earpiece there and he's able to hear, well, who's making a move, who's not making a move? And if it's starting at that, the next level is get rid of the lad from Hill 16, get rid of the lad from the Davin and put the piece in the ear.
Yeah. And the interesting thing for me, I was just watching the highlights of Wexford and Offaly in the under-20s, and I know there's a correlation in terms of the setups there, because there's a few selectors that with Davy, or a few of the guys that do the Mayor Ishkas with Davy that are involved in the selectorial capacity with the under-20s, and lo and behold, I don't think it's the same culprit. Not that he's a culprit. The culprit is the wrong word. But here's the same kind of guidance. So there's obviously a kind of a symmetry there in terms of the approach. And look, we're always looking. We talk about edge all the time. Yeah. We talk about guidance. I know some people would see it as gimmicky. Some people would see it perhaps as. But if you have a keeper that's built a relationship with somebody, like in that league game, there was several puckers that went out. Darren Byrne was fullback that day before Liam Ryan went fullback. And he was running out the pockets where the tendency looked like he should have gone long. And then all of a sudden you could see the change. You know, and you're watching, look, if you're a bit of an anorak like myself, you're watching for the guy putting his hand up to his ear and he's obviously getting the call to change the setup. And then you're looking to see what actually materialises and what changes.
I want to know why were you looking behind? Like, were you expecting somebody to be there?
Well, I was, because I picked up on it during the league game between Wexford and Kilkenny, as I said. So I was just kind of watching it, and it's like anything, you kind of just watching to see from a managerial perspective. When I hadn't the same glittering career that Lar had, you're trying to pick up on an edge, perhaps, that if you ever return to the fold, you're saying what's happening now. You know, you're trying to keep in touch with the latest craze, what you would actually park and say, well, I don't need that, I think that's over the top, or what could I bring that's extra that would be beneficial. And I think what Davy has done here is he feels it's beneficial. He feels Mark Fanning, even there's several examples during the game where Mark Fanning, as the play is up the other end of the pitch, he's talking through the net to the guy. You know, so he's obviously just getting advice in terms of, you know, where we're winning key battles, where we need to keep Kevin Foley positioned, you know, for changing our strategy on puckouts. And for me, it perfectly merges the whole idea that we can plan in detail, but we can still play. Yeah. You know, which is the debate for everybody to kind of to debate about, I suppose.
Yeah, it makes sense. And I want to get back to Kilkenny against Cork now on Sunday, and to that end, I want to get the tactics board and some Derek McGrath wisdom out here. So let's get it up. All right, so we have the tactics board here, but I have a question first has come through Twitter, and if you do ever have any questions for the lads, just get in touch. YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, hashtag Corbett, hashtag McGrath, or hashtag We Are Hurling for the Centra hashtag as well. Brian Hogan sent this question in, and I like the start of it. It says, what would Derek do? And I thought, geez, that could be a wristband, WWDD. But what would Derek do to stop Kearney scoring 5 from play without leaving 50 yards of space in front of the full forward line?
Yeah, it's a good question, first and foremost. I think it's a question for any wing back to contemplate. You know, a wing back doesn't want to go further than 50, 60 yards. If he goes to 100 yards, he's obviously going to open up. So I'd imagine if this is Daniel Kearney at 10 and Enda Morrissey, if we go per last week, is marking him and he goes 100 yards, the likelihood is that knowing Kilkenny over the years, we'll say, Enda Morrissey would relocate himself here, and either Walter Welsh at 12 would pick up Daniel Kearney when he comes into that territory, and over the years, we'll say Taggy Fogarty would come from the left corner out here. Nowadays you have Adrian Mullen coming to the left corner, which they're not doing to an extent now. So in terms of stopping him, I think there has to be a grey area, first of all. There has to be a cut-off point. So if he goes initially and Enda Morrissey is staying what we call zonal, if he picks 2 points, Enda Morrissey now has a decision to make. Does he go with Kearney and actually man mark him based on Brian Cody's instructions? Hey, Kearney's picking up too much ball, we got to get at him. Or does he become the property of Walter Welsh, the zonal kind of forwards, if you like? And we can use Enda Morrissey here as an outlet for Owen Murphy from short puckouts coming back here. And you can use him to possibly double team Alan Cadigan versus Joey Holden. So it's too great a risk, in my opinion, to leave Enda Morrissey go to 100 yards with Daniel Kearney. Or Conor Lahan if Daniel Kearney is not picked, which he wasn't part of the 26 last Sunday. So for me, Enda Morrissey has to stay here. So for Kearney to become a property of Walter Welsh, one of the Kilkenny full forward line would have to come from the full forward, whether it's Ger Elward, whether it's Adrian Mullen, and it probably wouldn't be Mullen, it might be Alan Murphy the last time, and he'd have to come out to the half forward line, and there's a pack around Kearney then. And I know that there's a grey area around that, okay? But for me, the balance in having Enda Morrissey back double teaming as opposed to having 70 yards of space in front of Alan Cadigan and Joey Holden. For me, it's suicidal for Enda Morrissey to be 100 yards from the goal. Now, that's the interesting thing about the whole setup this week, in that if you take last week, if you would imagine that this person here was a Wexford player, was Kevin Foley, and Kevin Foley, you'd imagine, is here and comes back as an extra defender, which meant that Pádraig Welch was free. That won't happen this week, because Cork will be, I won't say they'll be conventional, but they'll play with 6 forwards to a large extent. So the likelihood is that Dara Fitzgibbon, because he was picked at centre forward last week, will be picked at centre forward on Pádraig Welch. So Pádraig Welch has a different challenge. Again, Kearney wasn't part of the 26. Will you have Conor Lehane, Dara Fitzgibbon, Shane Kingston, and then you'll have Alan Cadigan, you'll have Harnedy and Horgan, or whatever order they'll go in. But what Cork have relied on over the last number of years is Luke Meade at 12 to be here, Daniel Kearney at 10 to be here, right down the field, supplemented by Bill Cooper, who can sit here, which will allow Mark Ellis to sit. So it's a different setup now, in that the forwards are, I won't say they're not less workmanlike, but they're more scorers than workers. So I think for Cork to bring what they normally bring to it, Lehane will have to take on the role that Meade has taken on, or Kearney, and Kingston will have to take on the role which Kingston will be well able to do, and Fitzgibbon will be able to do. And up to this, what I've noticed, and maybe it's because Wexford are playing with a sweeper, Kilkenny have been following. They've been following. And if they follow, and if one of the 3 of the full forward line with Cork, which they do, if they decide to leave, we'll say, Harnedy and Cadigan in for a minute, Horgan might wander. Then what they might do is Horgan will come back in and Harnedy will wander, and you'll have Cadigan and Horgan inside. And if Kilkenny follow as they have been doing, Cork will open them up. You know, traditionally for years, Lara will tell you, and he's better versed to tell than I would be. Lara would have faced a Kilkenny wall of Tommy Welch, Brian Hogan sitting back here, JJ Delaney, 6 backs tight together, and a half forward line out in the middle of the field. And if Lara went out there and he was on a run, the first chaser would be Walter Welsh, or would be Henry, or would be Eddie Brennan. And that's the way most teams are setting up. But Kilkenny, because they've faced a sweeper over the last number of, have inclined to push on, and with the result that there's a huge amount of space there.
Yeah, Derek is 100% right there. Before, the Kilkenny backs would stay, and you'd be trying to draw them out, but they wouldn't come. They'd stay and they'd help each other, and you might get a chance to pick off a nod point out from midfield. But as Derek said, the midfielders, the half forwards, they'll be back. Owen Larkin, how many times did he end up coming back, picking ball after ball? But the Kilkenny lads stayed honest. But Derek is saying, because they're after getting, I won't say this, they're trying to get their head around, for the last 5 years, they're trying to get their head around this defender. And they kind of ignored him for a few years and said he's not really there, or he doesn't make a difference. He is making a difference, and now they have to change. And that's where I think is going to play into Cork. That at the minute, Cork probably have the fastest set of forwards in Ireland at the minute. Probably the fastest. This Westmeath game is that they're setting them up lovely as regards confidence to individuals. Cork are going to win this game, and the reason why they're going to win it is because their guys are in top form. It doesn't make a difference of the opposition you played the last day. The only thing I'd be a little bit worried about with Cork, the level of aggression is going to be a lot higher when it comes to Croke Park against Kilkenny. The level of aggression will be a lot higher in the tackle to the Westmeath game. Can they withstand the level of aggression? If they overcome that in the first 10-15 minutes that Kilkenny are going to come with, their hurling is going to look after themselves, and they will get the scores in Croke Park that they got again Westmeath the last day. They'll get them.
Well, you have Alan Cadigan and Joey Holden picked as your key battle. Why is that?
Well, I think Cadigan's in a rich vein of form. He came on against Limerick, I think the second round of the championship, by default almost. Conor Lehane was injured in the first few minutes. I think he got 4 points in play. He scored 1, 4 or 5 against Waterford. He got 5 points in play and was taken off at half time against Westmeath. So he's been primed for Croker. Like he's been. Yeah. So he goes home. Lara talked about going home on the bus. He went home on the bus after 35 minutes of action last Sunday. So he's ready. Like, you know, anything you've read about him, he talked about coming back from a quad injury, from a knee injury, so he's had a year of absolute, I won't say torturous mental preparation in terms of getting the Croker. Like, so you'd expect him to explode. So he's in great form. And one thing you'd notice about him, if he gets on a ball early, if he gets a score early, he normally lights it up. The longer you can keep him out of it, the more chance you have of, you know, maybe getting on top of him. You know, ahead of the 2017 All-Ireland semi-final now, Noel Connors would have always picked up Patrick Horgan for us. And Cadigan had lit up the Munster final, and we changed Noel over to Cadigan. and we'd lie Philip Manny at 7 back in front of Noel and Cadigan early on, make sure there's only 20 or 30 yards between them and try and keep him out as long as possible. And we did relatively well that day, still got 2 points from play. So the longer you can keep him out of it in terms of frustration, the more, I won't say his confidence dissipates, but certainly he's a fella that once he lights it up at the start, you can nearly back him for man of the match. If you could get betting and running on man of the match during when if he gets the first 2 points, he'll nearly take off, you know. So it'll be interesting, and I think it's a mismatch in terms of pace, right? Out and out pace. But Joey Holden is to be underestimated at their peril in terms of stickiness. You know, there's also the chance that Paul Murphy might come to the corner. There might be a chance you might see Joey Holden at wing back, and there might be a change in the Kilkenny full back line. So, but it's in terms of absolute pace. But your man has a lot of guile, Joey Holden, and he's a great character too. You know.
Yeah. Well, lads, let's get some predictions. I take it we're all going for Laois. So let's talk about Kilkenny against Cork.
Yeah, as I said there, the Cork forwards, they're the fastest in Ireland at the minute. The Westmeath match is going to, after setting them up as individuals. They couldn't get it at a better time coming to Croke Park. The only thing I'm a little bit wary about is the level of aggression that Kilkenny are going to come with Cork. Can Cork match that for the first 10 or 15 minutes? If they can, it's going to be a Cork win, and Cork are going to get something similar scores than they got against Westmeath the last day.
And you're going to go Laois -5, or what do you think?
I'm going to go a tip win, not because we're complacent, because we're better.
There you have it.
Can't follow that, but
the USA Women's National.
Yeah, I think Cork and Tip will win. I think Kilkenny will bring a really good performance the weekend. I think you will see their half forward line way deeper than it has been. I think you will see their back staying fairly zonal. The interesting thing for me from Cork's point of view is Damien Cahalane came on in the last game. Owen Cadigan marked TJ Reid earlier. I went to a challenge game in Páirc Uí Rinn, and Owen Cadigan did a good job on TJ Reid. I'm just wondering, will that be kind of rolled out again ahead of the weekend? Because I don't think Cork are declined. They put a man marker on, but they won't follow either. You know, they want to get their defensive set up right. So that'll be the interesting one for me. I think TJ will get a bit more freedom than he did against the likes of Wexford, we'll say, in the two games, and against Wexford in particular, if you like. So that'll be the interesting thing for me. I think Cork will score 26 or 27 points, whatever way they get it, whether it's 221 or 27 points itself. So I just can't see, that's the least I can see them getting 26, 27 points. And I think that'll be enough to win.
And you think we'll see more men behind the goals with their hand in their ear instructing the goalkeepers?
No, I think we may be pinpointed. I don't think so. And I think we will in terms of the future. I think if people look at all types of scenarios where they can get the best out of their team, the best out of their goalie. And goalies are, introvert or extrovert characters, whatever you like to call it. So I think sometimes they need a bit of extra kind of guidance,
The coaches are just copycats as well, Derek, right?
Yeah, 100%. You're dead right. Everyone is looking for, whatever materialised this year, and whoever wins on the back of it will be rolled out next year, if you like. And but I think, look, you have to take a bit of everything and make it your own. Then in some ways, I think that's the key to it.
Yeah. Well, great stuff, lads. Thank you very much for tuning in. Thanks to our sponsors, Centra. Join the conversation again. #Corbett, #McGrath, or #WeAreHurling. See you in 2 weeks' time.